Hi friends, how you doing tonight? This is another episode of Rock Talk with Rick. We've been invited to the King of the Attic studio, the infamous King of the Attic studio. Let's go up and see what they're doing. Let's go. Going up the stairs. Come on, let's go see this, man. I remember these stairs. These stairs are insane. Trust me. How many stairs now? Just too many, man. Trust me. Anyway, come on up. King of the Attic studio. It's King of the Attic up in the air, you know? And that's where we're going. Down the hallway. Down the hallway. Here at the King of the Attic studio. Oh, this must be the dark zone or something, eh? I figured it's like one of those, Halloween houses where they jump out into scary them, man. Anyway, let's go see what's up at the King of the Attic studio. Hello? Hey! How you doing, brother?
Brothers, what's happening?
How you doing, man? Chris, how you doing, brother?
Mr. Cameraman here.
Yo, dog. So we're in the King of the Attic studio tonight. The place is, if you know where it is, it's great. If you don't, oh
We
well.
have to kill you if we show
Well,
you.
that's exactly it. So anyway, we're here with Chris tonight. This is his studio. We're gonna do some looking in the studio tonight, just a bit. We're gonna do a couple-part series of Chris because he's got an extraordinary career. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that tonight too. Well, we're going to give you a little bit of look around.
Take a little swoosh through there and we'll see where we're at.
There you go. Here, go check it out. Chris, how long you been here?
30 years.
30 years in the studio. Wow. All the glowing lights. Man, it's cool in here, man. Really looks cool in here. Hey? Doesn't it look cool in here? Hey. Let's go look this way. There we go. Oh. Great tunes. Wow, isn't this cool? Right on, brother. Right on. Getting a little view tonight of the King of the Attic studio. In a few minutes we're going to get together and we're going to talk to Mr. Chris Smith about his extraordinary career. So hang out with us. We'll be back in a minute. Hi people, how you doing? Welcome back to Rock Talk with Rick. We're sitting here with Mr. Chris Smith. How you doing,
Hey,
sir?
Mr. Yeah.
Mr. Chris Smith, yes.
All right, Mr.
Chris has had an extraordinary career. We're going to talk to him a little bit about it on this episode. So, my first question is, when did you start playing music? Why did you start playing music? And who influenced you?
Okay, there we go. All right. When? About 63, 64, somewhere in there, just when the Beatles came out.
Is
So,
that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically what was the nooks and crooks of the whole thing. We seen the Beatles, and then from then on, we said, "Hey, this looked cool. We got to do this, right?" So yeah, so watching Ed Sullivan, seeing the Beatles. Then, me and a couple of my buddies, so we're combing our hair down and putting our suits on and started to, practice down in the basement or whatever. So that's basically what set it all off. And then we'd have all our little friends come down and watch us. We looked cool as heck, but we couldn't play a lick. I mean, at that time, we had to learn how to play. But anyways, we looked cool.
Couldn't play a lick.
Yeah, at some point we said, you know what, maybe we better learn how to play guitars and actually learn some music or whatever. So obviously we progressed from there, but it was real beginning somewhere anyways, down in the basement. So yeah, that was it. So basically the Beatles influence, and that's basically the way we started. I mean, like I said, we look cool as heck. But anyways, yeah, then that lasted for a while. Of course, we were just school kids back then. And
High school.
before it was actually
A
senior
junior high.
public. I mean, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
really?
we're
Okay,
talking,
okay.
like I said, we're basically, like I said, 14, 15 years old. We weren't even in high school yet when we were just going into high school. So I met Joe actually in senior public, and that's when we progressed just a little bit more.
You're
and we
talking
decided-
about Joe Rucci?
Yeah, Joe Rucci, yeah, one of the original King of the Attic guys. Anyways, so yeah, I met Joe in senior public. So there again, we were just kids and say, hey, let's start this band. He says, hey, I got drums, so he's got some drums at home in his basement.
You're in!
We're good to go. You're in, yeah. But yeah, so we struck up a friendship or whatever. And then I had a couple other guys playing. That's before I met Bruno DeCipio and before we really got going there. But it was a couple of guys just in between, and we were just messing around in the garage. And over at Joe's place, because he had his drums and he couldn't even really take them out of the house at that time. He didn't have any way to carry them or whatever. So we were in his bedroom there. We got some pictures somewhere of us sitting in his bedroom starting to practice or whatever. Just a couple of me and the neighborhood guys. Anyway, so that progressed. But then, like I said, then I met Bruno because he lived down the street from me. And then he decided, well, that he wanted to play. So me, Bruno, and Joe started a band. And we were called the Spiders. That's before there was Spiders from Mars, David Bowie. I mean, we were talking way before that. I mean, like I said, we were just kids. So Spiders with the Y, so Spiders. So yeah, so we did the whole thing. We had spider webs and stuff all over the place, and a bunch of green lights and stuff, and our Beatle hairdos and everything. So we were getting pretty,
Where were you guys
sophisticated.
playing then?
Well,
what was around
Well,
in
coffee
like the Niagara
shops,
region and stuff?
down in the church basement. I mean, we were too young to even begin to play bars or whatever. And drinking age was 21 back then. I mean,
Yeah.
people coming from the States here to drink and party. So we were way too young for that. So high school dances, senior public dances, the little coffee shops down in the church. Almost
Cool.
every church had a little coffee shop.
Sure,
going
definitely,
back
yeah.
there, so a coffee house or whatever, and then you'd go and play your little gigs down there. So that's where we started, like with most of it, right? So anyway, so that's how me and Bruno and Joe got together. And then I was in maybe 3 or 4 bands in between starting up Factory. And so we kind of progressed it. And there, like, a year seems like a lifetime. So, I mean, within 2 or 3 years, you're in 3 or 4 different bands. And it seemed like it went on forever, but it was a short period of time. But over that period of time, we were actually learning how to play. So we'd go and watch guys that were playing. Because I mean, there was no YouTube. I mean, we didn't go on there and say, hey, how's Metallica playing this or what I like you do today. I mean, there was nothing. I mean, you either latched onto a neighborhood guy who knew how to play.
That's exactly
or
it.
go to the coffee houses where guys were playing.
Yeah.
So we would learn how to play from other guys. Somebody would show you a few licks, or you'd see how they play a couple of songs. You listen to the radio, try to figure it out.
That's
so
right.
we had a long haul to try to learn how to guitar. Like
I
said,
understand,
you just
yes.
don't learn, show you tabs and learn everything like you learn today on
It's
the internet.
not like putting on YouTube and the,
Yeah, I mean,
and the
you can learn
guys
to play
actually
anything.
showing you
There
how to
again, yeah,
play
how's
it.
Van Halen playing this? So we didn't have any of that. We had to figure it out, listening to crazy
Yeah.
records and watching.
Old school.
Old school stuff there. Old school stuff. You got
Old
that
school
right.
stuff,
So anyway,
man.
we went, worked up through the ranks, so to speak. And we actually all learned how to play. So it was a kind of a long go, but it gave us a different kind of background on music because we're actually learning and figuring out what we were
That's
doing.
right,
We weren't
man.
just copying something per se. So we kind of learned to play a little different.
Nothing
than
that
they do
this
today.
generation will ever know.
No, not really, because I mean, a lot of guys can play like wildfire and they play
Great.
a lot of stuff or whatever, but a lot of them don't necessarily understand what they're playing. I mean, you go to jam with that guy or whatever and start to throw out some different odd mixed keys or whatever, and the guy has got no idea where he is because that don't follow the pattern he learned for the Van Halen song he was learning or whatever. So he really, a lot of guys can repeat something, but they really don't know really what they're playing. So even if you just want to throw some chords together and toss it out there and banter back and forth, it's hard for some of those guys to jam. So I mean, they know a lot of licks sitting and playing on their bed or whatever, but when it comes to just relating to each other and playing,
Yeah.
we kind of developed that because we really didn't know too much, but what few things that
Isn't
we do.
that called like feel? Or?
Yeah, that's feel
You gotta-
and
you gotta-
interaction with somebody,
That's
right?
right, yeah,
So
that's right.
just like so we all learned how to play together and actually learned how to play something. It was pretty primitive, but actually you're actually playing with somebody, so you could actually go and play with anybody, and they'd give you a few chords or show you a few licks, and you can interact and actually play something regardless of what the key was or whatever. You have to say, well, I just know how to play stuff in A or G or
Yes.
whatever. They toss out all kinds of mixed blues keys that are in, sharps and flats or whatever.
Yeah.
And we learned to kind of coordinate ourselves and fit in with somebody. So it was a long goal, but we actually learned how to play something. So with the guys that I grew up with, through the years, we had guys, they would all come and go. People got lives, they got different things going on. So we played basically with a handful of guys, but everybody would swap out over the years. Everybody would kind of come around again. But we all knew how to play together.
And you all knew each other.
Yeah, we all knew each other, and we were all friends. So
Exactly,
it was a lot about the friendship, too. Like, we weren't looking for the best guy. Say, hey, this guy can play better than that guy. Hey, you're out of the band. There was lots of times we had guys we related, we had fun. That guy wasn't as good as somebody else, but it didn't matter. We were having fun, and we learned. And then sooner or later, you'd get it up to par to what it
That's
had to be. So
exactly
it wasn't
it.
about, well, you're out and this guy's in and all that kind of stuff. So for us, it
Get
was
out!
Yeah. So guys that I've known through the years, we've been fun and we've been friends, regardless of who was playing with who, because we just had fun with it. We weren't just tossing somebody out for somebody else or whatever.
No, it's got to
But
be.
old school, really old school stuff. But anyways, that's how we developed how to play. And then, like I said, over the years we got better. So around 66, 67. Is when I hooked up and we started to develop what came to be known as the Factory.
Right on, yes.
And there again, I was just jamming in some other bands and kind of really progressing along. And I met up with a couple of guys because we were trying to jam there again, start some other bands, do whatever. And I latched on to Rick Gauthier and Mike Weaver, who used to play with The Mood, and they were a fairly accomplished band at that time because they had a record out and they had a regional thing going. So that was the next plateau for me to say, well, hey, I finally latched on to some guys that want to write their own
serious,
music
yes.
and they want to play and they want to record. So for me, it was just moving up to the whole next plateau. So we kind of hit it off, and so and it progressed along, and fairly rapidly at that point. Because as I say, in those few short years, I actually learned how to play, fairly good skill level to say, well, hey, we can put something together, and we were just able to do it. And they come from the same sort of schooling, and we were able to play together. So anyways, it was nice to have some guys that's all that they really wanted to do, was basically they wanted to record, they wanted to do a lot of our own music. And so for me, it was a no-brainer.
Was you guys were trying to go after a record contract?
Oh
or?
yeah, that was our whole thing. Because then there again, we were recording. I mean, I had a recorder at that time, and they had some recorders at that time. So at this point, we reached say the plateau or the circumstances where we could actually just tape ourselves at least. We weren't like a big studio at that time, but we had some pretty sophisticated tape recorders at that time, and we were able to at least make some demos and jack around to say, well, now we're ready to go. They had some connections with other guys in the radio station, so we had a few DJs that were interested in us. So we started off, and actually we did a whole bunch of like intro jingles for the disc jockeys. Everybody had the Zaddy Daddy Da show, and we do Zaddy Da. It's the Zaza show or whatever, and it's just a few little things like a 15 or 20 minute little lick, 50 second. I'm sorry, 15, 20 second little lick. And then the guy would do his intro, and they'd make little carts, and they'd put them in, and then when they're ready for the show, they just kind of hit that, and it comes out. So we were doing that for some of the DJs, and then eventually that gave us the tools to be able to do some recording, because at that time, the bigger radio stations, they actually had small studios. And when I say small studios, I'm saying something like about the size of this. I mean, they could, they all had like a big grand piano in there, and some keyboards, Hammond, and everything. So they had some sophisticated little setups there, because a lot of stuff was big band era when a lot of these stations had started. So they would have a whole jazz ensemble or bring in an orchestra or whatever. So they had a studio floor, so to speak, and in a separate little studio room, because a lot of them used to do live broadcasts and do dance bands or do whatever. So anyways, a couple of the stations that we got hooked up with, they had a fair size studio, and we went in there, and of course we were able to use their equipment at night and go, because the guys were the DJs. So we'd go in there, and we actually were able to start the recording. So we did a lot of our stuff recording actually up in Timmins, because one of the DJs that used to work down here, he moved up there, and he said, hey, you got to come up. We got this great big studio from the 20s, and it was lavish. It was beautiful. So anyways, we were able to do some recordings, and some of them are on some of those early CDs that we transcribed from the old tapes that we had at the time. But anyway, so yeah, so we were able to do some recording, and then at that point, we actually got a real record contract with Spartan Records, and RCA was their affiliate in Toronto, and we actually had a real bona fide record deal where they said,
Oh.
hey, go into the studio, record a song, you're contracted by us, and then you get your percentage. So it's actually a real deal. We weren't just making something and trying to sell it yourself. I mean, they were going to, distribute it all over the place, and it was a bona fide record deal, which is pretty good for for some kids at the time. Like I said, 16, 17 years old, who would just kind of come up through the ranks and kind of had something going. So it worked out good for us. I mean, Ray Charles was on that label. And he was fairly notable at the time, and there was a few other people on that Spartan label. And being affiliated with RCA Studios, I mean, they had a whole outlet and distribution network, but they weren't just going to put you on RCA because Canada was kind of just like a second fiddle to the States. So that was just kind of their, go to the back room kind of a deal and do it for RCA. So basically RCA paired up with Spartan, so you had a good deal going, but you were second fiddle to the States. But hey, it's a bona fide deal. They're all real companies.
That's
I mean,
exactly
it worked out great
man.
for us,
Take
right?
it
Take
and run.
Take it and run. It was great.
Yeah.
So we had a good little run, and we actually hit number one, like up in Timmins. Of course, we had the DJ there that was working there, but I mean, he still got to go by ratings or go whatever. But he flogged the dickens out of it, but they liked it. So I mean,
Isn't that good when you do
worked
that?
great. Yeah,
Right
I mean,
on, right?
it's the old days. But
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, it actually reached like number one up there at the time when the Beatles had all kinds of songs going on. I'm saying it wasn't there very long, but I mean, it was on the bona fide top 10 chart at the time. So I mean, and a few places, because actually we got feedback at that time from the record companies or whatever, because their numbers would come in, because the stations back then had a running log, and they were a lot more, say, strict about what they played and how they logged it or whatever. So they would see the numbers basically like right away, because they had to account for their list and who they were playing and what was going on. So when you got feedback then, it was almost like instantaneous, even though it was the old days, because they were keeping written logs to say, hey, we played this guy, we played that, because everybody, they had to keep track of all your royalties, and back then they didn't pool it all together like they did now. They actually kept track
The
of
big
every-
bucks.
Yeah, big bucks. It was only a very small percentage, but they, when you record, they pay for the whole deal. So it's just the way that it goes. So unlike on a record deal, you get maybe 10%, but it's 10% of they're doing everything for you, and it's a reversal from today, because back then the records didn't really make that much money. They were the promotion and the launch pad for you to play the live concerts.
That's right.
And as a lost leader, then you would make up your money on the concert.
Yeah.
Today, it's gone a complete reversal, where they don't make that much money on the actual recording of the music anymore.
Yeah.
And the concerts cost them so much to put on that it's a hard game.
But
now.
that's why they're
But
charging everybody
That's
a
why you got to
big
pay a
ticket
gazillion
price.
dollars, for a ticket. And you know what it takes to set up a stadium show these days or whatever. But anyways, it's just the way that it was back then. So it was a reasonable deal. And actually, we got some pretty good royalties. I still get the odd crazy little royalty check, coming in from time to time to give you some pocket change or whatever, but it works out. You're on the list, and if something gets played or they use it in the background somewhere or something's going on, I always get kind of little tidbits here or there.
Well,
Not
that's
superstar
cool.
or anything, but you get a few little royalty checks.
But
They happen.
you
These
guys-
people know who you are. It's somebody.
You guys opened, did some shows with Spencer Davis.
Yeah,
for
we
a
played
bit.
with Spencer Davis. We played with Guess Who. We opened for quite a few bands at that time. But that was a fairly notable card for us back then, because them coming over from England, they were in the upper echelon. I mean, they were playing with guys like Steve Winwood and
That's
all that. So
exactly,
basically, you were on the A list, so to speak. So it wasn't like you just opened it, at some bar for somebody or whatever. So that worked out pretty good. So you play with a few A-listers. Now, there again, it's not like the concert magnitude today, but back then, big auditoriums and high schools. So that's really what we were geared to do, and that's why we were really enjoying it. So
All you guys over 50 will understand.
yeah, anybody over 50 will recognize the old high school dances and arena rock, and basically
Exactly.
that's what all this is. I mean, we're old school guys, and we like to belt it out like we're in the arena.
Yep.
Yeah, put me in the corner of a bar somewhere. It usually doesn't work out too well. But so that's just kind of the way we grew up. That's kind of where we're tailored. So through the years, I basically just proliferated forward. and we just keep moving forward on that format. So anyways, yeah, Factory worked out to be a real good platform for us, and it moved from Factory to Factory to just Tree, because as things are getting more psychedelic, you got to shorten the name and kind of come up with a bit of a gimmick. But they're all basically all the same band. But within a 2, 3, 4 year period, it had pretty much run its course. I mean, the drummer Mike Weaver, he had a bad heart, and he had some minor heart attacks at the time or whatever. So he got laid up, and at that time I was kind of getting tired of what we were doing, because we reached kind of a plateau, and then we got shelved. There was other acts, there was other things going on,
Yes.
and so we're kind of in between. We still had some record deal left over or whatever. He was kind of sidelined, and then we had to bring somebody else in. And at that point, they're saying, well, now to make the big leap to go to the States to do whatever you got to do, you kind of got to get back into that scene where you got to play a bunch of stuff that people know, and we got to get some other people to hear you. And you know the way that it goes, almost back like it is today. I mean, you got to start off and do the bar scene and let people, play something that they understand or they know and play the game. But so basically, after reaching that, I said, well, I really don't want to go back to doing all that kind of stuff, basically. And so for me, I just kind of opted out, because I could see, like I said, Mike's health wasn't too good. Things were changing. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So I kind of came back home again, and that's when I got into the Padlock scene, where it was me and Bruno and Fraser Kaufman, who was producing.
Yeah.
Guy who went on to produce Toronto and a few of those other bands. Anyway, so he played rhythm guitar for us, and we had various drummers. Joe was with us for a while, but then
Joe Rucci.
Yeah, he was just starting his family at that time and working, so he back and forth. So he opted in and out a few times. We had a few other drummers there again. Everybody just kind of rotated around. So we had the Padlock thing going for a while there again, doing the the high schools, the arena rock, doing
Yes.
some original material, and kind of working our way around. That worked out pretty good. It lasted maybe a year or two, and it went pretty good. But it reached kind of a plateau that we didn't have any record deals going or whatever. There was so many bands coming out by the mid '70s, and everybody was better than the next guy. And so we were doing okay for where we were, but and it was what it was. So we were having fun, and it ran its course. And then we decided, well, maybe we'll do something else. So I got a hold of Joe again. He was able to jam and practice a little bit. His life had kind of changed over the year or two, and said, hey, I'm good to go now. I got a job where I can, practice at night. Maybe we could play the odd gig on the weekend.
Yeah,
so it was all good. So Joe Ricci was back in, I was in, and we figured, well, we'll start shopping around town or whatever. Then lo and behold, who do we hook up with? Brother Rick. He's got an ad in the music store there, and we see the little number, and we call him up, and he comes over with his bass, and shit, he's got a real nice Fender precision bass. It'd be worth a fortune if he kept that bass now. It'd be worth about
The neck
30
was
grand.
fucked.
The neck was screwed. Excuse our language. Yeah, the neck was screwed on it.
Neck was screwed,
But it
yeah.
was a really nice bass.
Yeah, it's too bad.
At the time. But anyways, he had a bass, and we figured, hey, here we go, right? So we hit it off, and we decided, well, we'll start jamming and try to carry on, have some kind of a band. So anyways, and we had another rhythm player with us who was Rick Chappelle.
Yeah.
He's still around though. He's playing in another band. I can't
Oh,
remember
right
the
on.
name of it now. He's back playing a little bit. He's in contact with me a little bit off and on. I got to get together and jam with him. If you're watching, Rick, give me a call again. You know my email. We'll bring him out. We'll do a King of the Attic reunion.
There you
Have
go.
that chat.
Right here in the studio,
So many
man.
guys to bring out. But anyways, so we were kind of four-piece at that time, which was unique for us, but we were having a little bit of fun with it. But he had to go on to college, so it was back down to three-man again. So we keep leaning me through the years. So what happens is you just, you know what, we got enough guys, at least we can all show up and play. And rather than bring guys in and out, we just kind of got used to the more of the open, airy sound and producing the music that way, that basically we were back to three-man again. And for me, I like it, and my fans and my friends seem to like it. So we stay three-man for the most part, just because we're just used to it. And it's, like I said,
And that was the concept of what? That started.
well, that started King of the Attic.
That started
Okay,
King of the
so
Attic,
there's where
okay.
King of the Attic comes out. I was waiting for you to ask the question.
There you go.
You're keeping everybody waiting in suspense here. That's King of the
Oh,
Attic.
excuse me.
Anyway, we had
Excuse
Rick, I
me.
had Joe, and so anyways, we were jamming, and we got talking about, well, what we're going to call the band. And at the time, we were playing in the upstairs portion of where they used to keep buses down below. It was basically like a big, I can't say like a warehouse, but it was a big industrial building that was built for buses down below.
Outside of Welland.
Outside of Welland.
That's all we're
outside
gonna
of Welland.
tell you.
And anyways, we were on the upstairs portion of this, and we got fooling around one night and said, we still hadn't found a name for the band, and we were
That's right.
jamming. So we got talking there again about our old days. Oh yeah, back 6 or 7 years ago, that was old days for us back then. Said, oh yeah, before I had the record deal and all the stuff that, we were the king of the basement bands, man. We started off down in the basement. Somebody said, well yeah, now we're playing upstairs. We're in the attics. There we go, king of the attics.
There we
You
go.
and I had talked about it, and Joe
Yeah.
said, hey, there's a name, because we weren't sure what to call it anymore. So basically, there's where King of the Attic evolved, because we were upstairs in this commercial building. It was like an attic.
Yeah, it was nice.
and it was
I
pretty nice
remember
up
it was
there.
nice up
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it was just a big open wooden
Nice
floor
and
there,
warm in the
nice and
winter
warm.
time.
They had the heat come up from downstairs there, and it was all pretty good up there.
I always thought it had like a lodgy feel, like
Yeah,
being
well,
in
because
a
it was
lodge.
all wood that wasn't finished.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
it
all
was
bare
cool.
walls,
It was cool.
and so it was like an attic, even
Yeah.
though it wasn't all crunched like an attic. It was a full upstairs story, but I mean, wood ceilings and wood floor on the plywood, everything else. So it had, like you said, it had a great feel to it.
I
It kinda
remember,
felt
I
like you were in
remember
the
all
attic.
those days
Yeah.
very well,
Yeah.
very well.
So there's where the attic thing came from, and hence that was kind of the let's say the foundation of King of the Attic. So there's where we come up with the name. That's how you came into it. Joe was into it, and then we progressed. Like I said, we got all kinds of crazy stories we could tell you in between there. But we've got something dinging on the camera there. Is it telling us something? Oh, somebody's phone's ringing. Okay, just want to make sure we're not running.
Yeah, we're out.
running out of
We're
phone here.
ready to
Oh
go.
boy, we got things chiming and going on here or whatever. All right. So, anyways, yeah. There's kind of where we are. You want me to elaborate a little bit more, like what we did, or whatever? We can go on forever here.
Well,
part one, part
What we're
two,
gonna
we get
do
part of
is
it
I
now.
think we're gonna take a break.
We'll take a break and we'll reminisce some more.
That's exactly. We'll
see-
come back
let you
with
know.
other stupid stories and stuff. So hang out with
Stupid
us.
stories.
Well, I mean,
They're not stupid stories. Well, they are. They probably are stupid stories, but we're not going to call
That's
them.
not what I
stupid.
meant.
Interesting stories. We're doing an interview.
Okay.
We're going to do interesting stories. Not
There we
stupid
go.
Stories. Even though we may be stupid at the time, they're interesting.
that's all. I'm joking around, man.
So-
I'm having a good time.
We'll be back.
We'll be
Okay,
back
We'll be
on
back.
the
He's
Rock
over here
Talking
now.
Rick.
Over here. We
Hang
don't have
out.
this camera to look at. We'll be back.